dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News Weekend Edition.
Good evening, I'm Keaton Hall. Flood debris removal crews met with state officials tonight in Letcher County in hopes of getting everyone in agreement with a plan. This meeting comes after the hired contractors met Friday in protest of prior decision making. WYMT's Chandler Wilcox gives us an update on the developing situation.
After the protest they called a safety stand down, flood debris removal crews got the attention they hoped for. A meeting with different organizations controlling the cleanup.
I feel like with this meeting today that we have opened some ears and let some people be aware of what's actually going on out here. And if we hadn't have stood up and voiced what we see going on, there would have been nobody that would probably even notice this.
Although the meeting was behind closed doors, which frustrated some contractors, they feel a step in the right direction was taken.
They're going to be meeting possibly with the governor here in the next couple days to try to get these issues resolved and find out where these problems stemmed from.
The biggest key of the meeting was finding common ground, something that has been hard to come by with multiple agencies involved in the decision-making process.
Because since we first started the work, the rules has kind of changed, and some of the work that was being done is no longer allowed to be done, and it's leaving a lot of liabilities left in the streams and putting our citizens in having safety concerns with possible future flooding.
Now that the meeting is done, contractors are hoping to get back to work with a plan that best helps Eastern Kentuckians.
So we're just kind of waiting on them right now to make a decision so we can resume work.
There's no specific timeline for when an official plan will be installed, but contractors are hoping it as soon as a lot of debris remains. In Letcher County, Chandler Wilcox, WYMT Mountain News.
We reached out to state officials and other representatives controlling roadways for comment, but we haven't gotten a response yet. Police are asking for help in identifying a suspect in an early morning assault in East Moorhead. In a release, police say a woman was assaulted Sunday morning between 4 and 7:30 a.m. She described her attacker as a white male, about 6 feet tall with facial hair. He was wearing a blue shirt, ball cap, and boots. Moorhead police are asking anyone with info or home security cameras in the area to call the number you see there on your screen. Folks in Pike County will want to keep an eye out for road changes and possible delays this week. In a release, the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet said that Kentucky 194 East near the Phelps community will be down to one lane. That's at mile 55.5. The closure will be this Tuesday from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. to repair a cross drain. Drivers are encouraged to be vigilant of workers and their equipment in the area and expect delays.
Well, a rather mild evening continues through the entirety of the mountains for the most part. In fact, we range between 9 degrees from several of our areas. 51 right now in London at London Corbin Airport, 54 here in Hazard. How about 60 still in Pikeville at this hour, 64 in Jackson. So some areas cooling off a little slower than the rest of them. Most of us in the low to mid 50s. Either way, we are rather mild for this time of year. Satellite and radar, nothing to worry about with that tonight. Maybe a few clouds, but that's about it. Near 50 as we head into the overnight hours. Some of us are already in those upper 40s, but I think a lot of us stay right around 50 as we head into the nighttime hours. Calm winds and mostly clear skies. The latest on when we could see a return to some showers in the forecast. That's in a few minutes. Keaton?
Thank you, Evan. Apple Red is a legal aid group that typically focuses its efforts on supporting low-income members of the communities it serves. But when the floods hit Eastern Kentucky, they stepped in to offer free services for people seeking disaster relief. Tonight, one of their clients shares her family's devastating story. Jeremy Toms has more.
After becoming a first-generation college graduate, Kristen Back moved away from the mountains and settled in Madison County. Her family tree spreads across southeastern Kentucky, and a late-night call from her mother in July made her realize that its roots would soon be pulled right out of the ground. Flooding made her hometown of Neon unrecognizable and put her family's lives in jeopardy, especially her grandfather's, Donnie Q. Back, who lived in Jeremiah.
He said it just sounded different than it does when it's normally raining, so he opened the door and that's when all the water came pouring in.
The water continued to rise in Donnie's home, and he didn't leave until later that day when Kristen brought him to safety. His home left a complete loss. A few days later, she noticed his condition began to deteriorate. Kristen says his oxygen tank ran out on the day of the floods, causing brain damage.
He didn't know where he was.
And were those issues he'd ever had before?
No.
Kristen took her papaw to the hospital, where he was then moved to the ICU and eventually to hospice care. 3 weeks after Donnie lost his home of 40 years, Kristen lost her grandfather.
He was right then, getting to be with my granny, his wife, be with my dad and my uncle. So I knew it was an okay thing. It just hurt really bad.
She took another hit when FEMA denied her application for assistance with the loss of her grandfather's home. That's when she found Apple Red.
She was one of those clients that whenever we met, we cried.
Kristen shared her story with attorney Whitney Bailey, and now she's on the path towards appealing her denial. Having been on the brink of giving up herself, Kristen knows well that her two hands could only carry so much of the burden these floods have brought. So she urges fellow flood victims not to give up and to look for a helping hand instead.
I've never been more proud to be from that community. It's just a reminder of how lucky we all were to have each other.
Jeremy Toms, WKYT.
Bailey says those affected by the flood can reach Apple Red through their flood intake hotline by calling 844-478-0099. Across the nation, new cases of RSV have hit the highest level for any single week in the past 2 years. More than 7,300 cases of RSV have been reported in the U.S. That's for the week ending October 15th. Many children's hospitals say they've been overwhelmed with patients. Some health experts predict this will be a rough winter for Americans to navigate not only RSV, but also COVID-19 and the flu. Police are asking for help in identifying a suspect in an early morning assault in East Moorhead. In a release, police say a woman was assaulted Sunday morning between 4 and 7:30 a.m. She described her attacker as a white male around 6 feet tall with facial hair. He was wearing a blue shirt, ball cap, and boots. Moorhead police are asking anyone with info or home security cameras in the area to call this number you see on your screen. The Harlan County Ghost Hunters is a group that was created in 2013 to learn more about paranormal activity within these mountains and beyond. The group is made up of a handful of Harlan Countyans who use special equipment to investigate people's homes, businesses, and historic sites. The group's owner and lead investigator, Dexter Day, says ghost hunting is a lot like fishing. It's not guaranteed you'll reach someone on the other side, so it makes it much more exciting when you do.
You can go out there and catch you the biggest monster bass of all time or monster evidence, and sometimes, I mean, you want to get a bite. The big thing is have an open mind, be patient, because things don't always happen like that.
The Harlan County Ghost Hunters also have a podcast called The Hauntings of Harlan County, Kentucky, and more. For any skeptics out there, group members encourage anyone to come experience an investigation with them to see everything firsthand. Coming up at 11, we've got the latest on the war in Ukraine as Russia makes some claims against Ukraine.
And continuing to watch the potential for showers to return to the forecast by midweek. Those details coming up.